Hello, Rachel.
Hi, Ryan.
How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm also okay. I'm feeling actually a little sad because we're here to get on the worm and have a good time. I didn't see any worms in this particular installment of our journey through the Dune universe. Very upset. We got Vord last week, and they're holding it back this week. That finale better be nothing but worms up in here. But other than just doing okay, Rachel, what's going on?
I watched another episode of Dune Prophecy.
I also watched an episode of Dune Prophecy here on Yumyumpod, the only podcast covering Dune Prophecy and noting down that there's nothing but Australians in the cast. I listened to one other because I was curious. It was like, I listened to the first episode. I was just curious of like a vibe of what other people think of this show. And of course it was like, oh, it has Dune stuff in it, so it's great. Yeah, but what about Todd from Life Support? Are you going to mention that there's Aussies all throughout this? No, only we do that here. And we are Yum Yum Podcast. We are a husband and wife team that reviews episodes of science fiction television one at a time. We've covered a whole plethora from Star Trek Discovery, that's where the name came from, to Babylon 5, Space Above and Beyond. We're going through The Expanse as first-time watchers. But here today, we are going through Dune Prophecy, which is a new show. And people, if you have not seen this latest episode, recommend that you give it a watch or you will be spoiled on the things that we are going to discuss here. And Rachel, we are recording this hot off the presses, like right a moment after it came out. So there's no plot summary for you to read. But could you tell us what this episode was about?
I will get to that. But I was just like, oh, maybe there's like a synopsis online. So I was just trying to search for it. And then I was like, you know what might be fun?
I have a suspicion you're going to be using a living machine to generate a summary.
I am.
You're the problem.
I'm the problem. It's me. Hi.
I'm anti using living machines. I said improvise something before this, and you're like, okay, and now this is what okay, give us what the machine has written out for us here.
So I typed in, what is the synopsis of Dune Prophecy episode In Blood Truth?
Okay. And what does it say? And put this on IMDb when you're done.
So wrong.
Put this on IMDb afterwards.
It's so wrong. It's 3 paragraphs long.
Oh, I don't know if we're going to do all 3, but give us some of the hits.
The Dune Prophecy episode, Blood and Truth.
Okay.
So it's already gotten the title wrong. Is a pivotal part of the game's narrative.
That's correct. It's a game. This show's a game. It's playing with us.
In this episode, the protagonist, Ryan...
That's me! I am the protagonist. How did it know?
continues his quest to dismantle the criminal empire of the powerful family, the Tanners.
That's right. I hate the Tanners. Those fucking pricks. I hate them so much.
Ryan has been working alongside his allies to bring down the family and their various criminal activities, uncovering dark secrets along the way.
I really do hate Tanner Auto Repairs in Collingwood, and it's currently closed because it's night time as we record this. And you know why it's closed? Me. I'm dismantling the evil empire of auto repairs.
Hey, you ready for paragraph 2?
Okay, give us paragraph 2.
In the Dune Prophecy episode, Ryan delves deeper into the world of crime and corruption, following clues that lead him to more dangerous situations.
So these are 3 different versions of the plot summary, I'm thinking, because each one is the same, but they're just worded differently.
The story is filled with high-stakes action and suspense, with Ryan navigating through a series of missions that push him to make more difficult choices.
Very difficult.
Oh, make difficult choices. Sorry, no more.
Not more. I've never made
Just
difficult
difficult
choices before. Now it's when it starts.
The events of this episode are crucial as they reveal more about the criminal syndicates the Tanner family's control over them and Ryan's own personal vendetta.
Why is this? These Tanners are always getting up my personal vendettas.
The episode combines this is the third paragraph.
Okay.
The episode combines
She read 'em all.
intense firefights, stealth, and strategic action as Ryan uncovers the critical pieces of information about the fate of his family and the path to taking down the Tanners.
The golden path.
It also
a
further
little Dune
develops
joke.
overarching themes of revenge, loyalty, and the consequence of getting involved in the criminal underworld.
Thank you so much. And that's what this episode of Dune Prophecy was about. And I'm going to just
It
give
does
everyone
match up with some
sure,
things, right?
Sure
'Cause
does.
I'll actually give.
Okay. What was the purpose of? I'm never going to remember the title of this episode. It's
In
a very
Blood
awkward.
Truth.
Okay, it's an awkward title. So,
Yep.
what's
You've
this actually
got to try
about?
and convey a comma verbally. It's always a bit weird. On the home planet of the Imperium, Desmond Hart has gotten his Gestapo together,
Mhm.
but the Sisterhood is still wrangling for control, pulling in an unknown figure to sway the Emperor. Meanwhile,
At the Sisterhood,
at the Sisterhood,
a bunch of crap happens and takes up time. Did I undercut?
Lila successfully channels one of her ancestors, leading to a stark revelation.
Oh, what a revelation it was. And here's a revelation. My thoughts on this episode. This was my favorite episode we've watched so far.
Me too!
I had a great time. There was shit in there that I don't care for that is a continuing issues. Some of the dialogue is rather weak, but I thought this opened up so much potential for what the series could be, and it fed my desire of having more scenes of the eccentric characters getting to do their thing, spending more time with Desmond Hart and Harrow, and heck, even this new sister Francesca. She was an interesting character, and I thought this was it balanced things well of moving the plot elements forward and having good characterization.
I gotta say, I wasn't that far off Google's synopsis. So I feel like I did a pretty good job. But I don't think Ryan wants to hear a third synopsis for this episode.
No, that would actually be 5, but don't worry. You gave us 5. You might as well read this one while you're at it. Do you have any thoughts on this episode, Rachel? You said you liked it, or you had a good time, at least. You chimed in, and I thought you were going to follow that up with thoughts on that, but you just want to... Guys, fuck it. We didn't like this episode. We're here to read Google summaries of what this could be about. Here's another one. Poo-poo pee-pee fart. What a great summary that was. There's implications that people pooed and peed and farted in this episode. You just have to look real hard for those clues.
This episode I felt was fairly solid because it's really starting to bring together elements, and it's not dealing with hiding obvious things from us anymore. Even though there are a couple of instances of that happening within this episode, it feels like, okay, we're at the end of this stage. We've got one episode left after this. It feels like it knows what it's doing and somewhat found its own voice. It's not incredibly strong or interesting, but it's a big step up from the way that I felt about last week's episode.
And the series thus far, you've not been a huge lover of the show.
No.
Yeah, I've had such a up and down experience. I think the back half is proving to be stronger than the first half. This episode is so good, in fact, that I did not notice any particular distracting musical choice.
Oh, I kept an ear out. I noted a couple.
Oh, great. I was just swept up in this enough where there was no glaring, like in my ears, in my face, ruining a scene musical choice like there has been in every other episode. There was no comedy music this week.
No, I wouldn't. There were just really obvious ones that was like, oh, fine, you're doing that. Actually, my first note for regarding the music is like the arrival of Francesca on the planet. The music is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But the music sting for after Constantine said like his father was proud of him was a little bit obnoxious.
Pride, a major thing of the episode. Did you note that down? They only said it 5 times. Almost as many times as we read summaries of the episode. Did you notice? So what were some other moments for you of the music that stood out? You said you had a few, so I want to hear you back those up. Because, yeah, even that one you mentioned, I can't recall it. In my mind, this show's been so aggressive with music that's out of place than obvious.
To skip around a little bit, I didn't really like the music when the Empress was leaving the dinner. It was very just overt, and it's just like it just left nothing to the imagination because like along with the visuals it was just very in your face. She's upset and she's on the run and be intrigued.
That's this show, isn't it? It wants you to be intrigued, and so it's going to use every element, including the music, to push that along.
And the other one that stood out to me is when Tula is taking Jan like down to where Lila is.
And is it Jan or Jen? I thought it was Sister Jen, and you keep saying Sister Jan, and now I've forgotten.
Oh, it's Jen. It's Jen. I just...
Okay. Sister Jam herself. When she's taking her
Pump
down
up
to...
the jams.
Oh, I wish they played that.
Pump up the jams.
I wish they played Pump Up the Jams in this show.
Okay.
Could you imagine when the Emperor said, on Old Earth, they had this great music, and it's the jukebox from the Doctor Who episode that comes out?
Yeah. I will say that the music didn't take me out of it a lot. Like, I noticed it, but it was just like, okay, whatever. It wasn't like the full record scratch kind of.
There's no obvious bwom, bwom, bwom.
But I did have that same sort of reaction, but to dialogue a lot in this episode. And I noted a couple of those down.
I was so mixed on the dialogue because
there are some really nice lines
and good callbacks and just weaving the bits through. I thought there was some great parallels going on in these stories and the characters. I thought some of the clunky dialogue appeared clunky at first, but then you realize, oh, it's clunky like that because the character themselves is having to put on a performance. And
the
they
born
have
to serve line is kind of like that.
Pretty much everything that Harrow, Desmond, and I'm forgetting her name, but the sister who's the one that runs the underground, the Fremen. They had some lines that I was like, okay. But then it was like, oh no, this is on purpose. This is deliberate. So
stay here because she's your friend?
Yeah.
Do you have an excuse for that one?
Who said this one?
Tula. to Jen. She's just like, you're going to stay here because you're her friend.
Well,
remember?
That's okay because it's Tula manipulating her. What I don't like about that line of dialogue is that Sister Tula immediately is like,
what I need is your discretion.
Well, that makes sense too. What I don't like is Tula's like, oh, she's up and about and awake, and I've just given you this information that you could easily spin out about or be freaked out and tell others.
Especially after you just had an outburst in class.
I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave immediately. Like, that's a part of it that I don't like. Like, the dialogue didn't bother me. It's more like in the context of the action.
Tula makes a lot of dumb choices when it comes to what she says in this episode, because another one that I wrote down is her talking to the older sister.
Mm-hmm. Trying to flex her authority on her.
Not even that part. Her being like, it's not safe for you here. Like, are you trying to be as suspicious as possible, Tula? Because you're trying really hard to look like you're fucking everything up.
Well, that is something that I at least will say. No, I also agree. I thought that was a bit on the nose. I do appreciate that this episode leaned in a little bit more heavily to the fact that all of the sisters, especially the ones that didn't come from any place other than the sisterhood, are socially inept weirdos that people, once they don't trust them, will easily read through some of their weird bullshit lines, including like the Fremen sister. It's like, oh, okay, you're just a piece of shit. And it's not even that subtle, a lot of their stuff. It's just they're so used to being trusted by each other and everyone else that
they
can
cannot
just
stand up to being questioned.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that worked in this episode really, really well. I've been shitting on the sisterhood side of the story pretty much all season, and it's not going to stop now. I do not care. The Lila side of this does not interest me. All it does is just generate talk of what does this mean? What could that mean? Oh, she says this. Oh, this. I don't care too much about it at all. I thought the actress who plays Lila did a pretty good performance.
Yeah, she communicated that she wasn't herself in a way that wasn't comical.
She reveals that the dreams they're having are prophetic visions of a future. Okay, not too shocking there. Could the eyes inside the Shai-Hulud be, could it be Apollo Atreides? Could it be his freaky God Emperor son, Leto II? Who knows? Who knows? It could be that. One of the prequel shit that I hated in the Lila stuff, absolutely detested, was the older sister saying, and almost in a weirdly jovial tone, just saying, what kind of abomination is this? It's like, oh, there's the term abomination that will come up in the future of this series.
That box. Woohoo!
Lila, could she be an abomination? No, the sister just said it so casually. Oh, ha ha, tee hee. Oh, I pointed at the screen. Shut up. Shut up. I hate how they do this. There's some prequel stuff I don't mind in this show, and then there's stuff like this that just drives me up the wall. How do you feel about what Lila says about the vision stuff?
It's nothing new. Like, yeah, that's what I thought. Thanks for giving me confirmation. You could no longer string me out for several episodes because you don't have that many left, so thanks for getting to the point relatively quickly.
Other than being confirmed what we already thought, what does it actually mean, though? What does it offer up?
I haven't even bothered to think about it.
I have such a weird conflict inside of, since this is so far in the future, it feels so irrelevant that they bring up the future events of this show the way that they do. Like, let's get over the prequelness of like, oh, this is where the term abomination came from. Oh, look, a Gom Jabbar. I'm talking about like directly the Arrakis, Atreides, Leto II, whatever stuff. I was fine with it being like, oh, they misunderstand this prophecy, and in so misunderstanding it, they are furthering the dangerous warning signs that will eventually bring about someone like Leto the Second. I was fine with it like that, but now they're like directly being like, oh, look, see? Iraq, and here's something that bothered me this episode. I don't know why, but this episode, because they brought it up a lot, it's annoying to me that we're watching Dune Prophecy and we are never on Dune. Like, we're never on Arrakis.
No.
We've never been, like, we've seen it in flashback vision of, like, Desmond Hart, but, like, it actually kind of bothers me because in the Dune books that I've read, it always comes back to Arrakis, or at least it still circles around that. Like, it's actually important.
Arrakis is at the heart of what's happening, and yet we're not there.
Like, I could forget, I don't know, just something about its mentioning bothered me a lot in this episode.
Dune and Arrakis and Spice, but we're over here.
Like, they're bringing up all this using the Fremen, and it just doesn't really mean much to me in this series because the Fremen aren't a thing. There's just one of them here. And it's like, that is interesting that there is one of them not on Arrakis, and what does that mean? But back to Lila, she is possessed by Mother Superior Keller, and she does her science stuff and tells us what?
That Desmond Hart appears to be using a living machine virus that infects or is activated by the fear center of your brain.
Yeah, and now we know that. Is it just purely a weapon he's using, or how do you interpret this new information with what we've been seeing and getting from Desmond himself?
I feel like it is more confirmation that he is, at least in part, living machine, like we were speculating last episode, I believe. And that it is just a convenience thing that he's going after the living machines because he really wants to take down the sisterhood, which is basically what he says to the Empress anyway.
So is he a pawn in somebody else's game, or is he just a rogue agent of chaos?
He's just a rogue agent.
So who made him this way?
I think he really did get eaten by the worm, and he's just using it to...
But how does the living machine stuff play into that?
I don't fucking know.
That's what I'm asking. Like, somebody had to give him this stuff, right? And in this universe, as we've seen, if you're handed that much power, there's a trail. There's someone doing this,
it's like in Pinocchio. He got eaten by the worm, like Pinocchio gets eaten by the whale. And there's a bunch of other shit inside the worm, including...
A living machine?
Yeah.
Do you think that the reveal...
The worm ate an entire scientific outpost.
If they're going to reveal... No, seriously. If they reveal that a worm was being possessed by a living machine that so happened to eat Desmond Hart and make him...
Oh, it's not a real worm, it's a living machine worm?
No. I'm saying, like, Desmond Hart seems like he was the one we've got in front of us seems like he's a real person, right? Like, he is Desmond Hart, but he's got a machine thing inside of him that allows him to do this ability. What's to say that a worm doesn't have that? You know, like an actual worm has a living machine hiding inside of it because of the war, and it happened
hybrid,
and it ate.
Sci-fi loves the hybrids.
Oh yes, and it eats Desmond Hart and is using him to destroy the powers that be, so that we can have.
The worm wants to save Arrakis, so it sent Desmond Hart out.
Yes,
as its champion.
Well, yeah, the living machine.
Where we've gotten to?
Because I can't get past if he is a Gola or if he's a cyborg or a fucking whatever. Someone has to have made that happen to him.
Yes.
You can't just say he got eaten by a worm and he's been given this stuff.
The DNA seems to confirm that he is human. Mm-hmm. He has DNA ancestry, and we assume is Tula's son, because he's a Harkonnen and an Atreides, and she's like, oh my god. And it's just like, well, we know that she fucked an Atreides.
The last time,
within that, I switched between pronunciations.
Who cares? In the future of the story, Paul is the offspring of a Harkonnen and an Atreides, because Lady Jessica is related to the Harkonnens, and if I'm correct in that, and obviously his dad's an Atreides, and so he is, the product of all of this manipulation. So is Desmond Hart like a precursor version of that, because he is also a Harkonnen and an Atreides, and he has superpowers.
Yes, which means that he has the ability to commune with the worms.
Or what? But still, they referenced in this episode that his ability is not one of like genetic sci-fi magic stuff that we get in the Dune universe. Like, he's not you won't get this, but he's not a Teg, for instance. That's a character later on who has like super speed abilities because of all of the stuff. He is a person with abilities because he has machinery. Like, he has technology. He has some kind of a harness on a weaponry that was actively used in a war that happened not so long ago. Someone had to give that to him, right?
Yeah.
But do you prefer that, or do you prefer him being like what he's presented himself as currently, as like a person with a grudge?
Like baby Anakin, and he's really techie, and he found the sort of remains of the thinking machines wherever he was.
And what, put it inside of himself?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. We get a lot more, reveals, of course. You said it. He's the son of Tula, it seems to be, and that makes sense. Like, I can see that. I was a little tired of this episode being so family drama in the way of like, here's Constantine's mother you haven't seen, and here she is, and it brings a new dynamic.
Mentioned.
And we saw the younger version in the flashbacks, so she has been around, but this is the first time we're seeing this version of her. And Desmond Hart can't just be some guy. He can't just be some soldier. He has to be
connected.
He has to be connected in a way that, does he know? He knows that he's the son of a sister, but he doesn't know. Does he know? You asked this of me when we watched it. Does he know that he's related to the Mother Superior? Do you think he knows that? Because
does he know that he's talking to his cousin when he's talking to Harrow?
Yeah. Actually, true. Does he know that? Seriously, though, what's your thoughts on this? Because
I don't think he knows. I think he just knows that she was a sister, and that has festered enough for it to be this. I wouldn't be surprised if it does turn out that he knows. But because they've established that they do hide the lineage of people within the sisterhood, I'm like, oh yeah, like, I wouldn't be surprised if she successfully just, made him a foundling.
I don't know, because every time we ask this of Desmond Hart, he reveals he actually knows something, and then you have to think about, like, okay, how much does he know? And how much does that influence his plans? I like to think he doesn't know, and he's just going off of this burning hatred of the sisterhood because of this reason, and then he's found legitimate reasons to be upset with the sisterhood, because as we see,
they are shit.
I think this episode does the best job the entire series has done so far of demonstrating that the sisterhood is actually terrible and shitty and corrupt to its core and manipulative, and they try to say that they're doing this for the greater good, but in so doing, they are stripping any form of good we recognize. And is that, who care? They're like, how much do you care about that? Like, hey, if they save us from sliding back into destruction, does their amorality matter? Like, that's a question do the ends justify the means type deal. I thought that was really well examined. and demonstrated in the episode, and I felt it as well. Heck, even when Desmond was talking about like his background at the end with the Empress, and we are intercutting it with Tula learning his background as well, I was, yes, engaging with it on we're revealing stuff, but also I felt a twinge of an emotion there of like, okay, this adds up more to the emotional landscape of Desmond rather than just like, what's his power? Who's built him like this? Blah, 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 blah. Now I know more pieces of what makes him tick, not just psychologically, but emotionally, which I think has been the vaguest thing of his character. Of like, why is he doing this on an emotional level? Because he seems angry all the time about this stuff, or gleefully mischievous. So is there more that you want to say about that stuff with Desmond and the reveal of stuff? Do you like it?
Yeah, I am enjoying that playing out, because we knew that he was going to be connected, and the fact that it's that really obvious thing, and it's just like, okay, they're just telling us now. They're not going, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. It's like, no, here.
Well, we are introduced to the adult, the older version of Sister Francesca, and there's a lot of history here. A lot of exposition, background lore given to us, and since I'm on the praise wagon already, I think they did like a masterful job of going through a lot of exposition and implied history for this character. I thought the dialogue for all of her stuff was really well done, and her scenes were some of the standouts of not just this episode, but the series. This actress, I made a bit of a joke of last episode of she's been credited in every episode, but she's not appeared. This is the Indian actress, a Bollywood actress, Tabu. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. She brings it. Like, I see like why people are excited to have her in the show. I'm actually kind of upset that she's not in the show more, because I thought the writing was a step up, but I also thought her acting helped play out a lot of the stuff in between the lines, if you catch my drift.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, I felt very intrigued by her connection with the Emperor and the sort of one-sided chemistry of, like, Mark Strong clearly wants her more than she wants him.
Mm-hmm. And does he actually want it? No, it's a part of the spell. It's the imprinting, as they call it. Another one of the Sisterhood's tricks. And you know what was, again, marvelous is her performance. When she's manipulating all of these people, as we see, I'm left wondering during the scenes if this is her actually following through on the Sisterhood plan, or is she going off book because she feels remorseful and guilt, because there's a bunch of that in her face and in her voice and in her mannerisms. And then at the end of the episode, no, she still manipulated them, she still played them, she still used her sexual prowess and abilities against the Emperor, she twisted her son in the place that he needed to be. So was that remorse or regret or woe a performance on the character's part, or is it genuine, or is it somewhere in between? And the biggest question of all of that is, do you feel for her, or are you against her because of how it all goes? Like, how much does her overt feelings that we read off of her matter when we see what her actions led to in the end anyway? What are your opinions on all of that? And did you feel similar or otherwise?
I was just enjoying the ride when it came to her. And I was, in those moments, dubious of her intent. But I quickly accepted that she is towing the line. And there is the potential that maybe there will be something that she won't be willing to do.
Or is this her mask that she wears? We see Valia through this episode get confronted with people saying that how she does things is wrong, and you see that she puts on this bravado, this fuck you attitude to keep justifying herself. Is this Sister Francesca's equivalent of that? Instead of it being as hard-edged as Valia.
Yeah, it's not blustering.
Her way of being able to put on the mask and be able to be this masterful manipulator, powerful Reverend Mother is to have this persona of, I don't want to do this. I think it's great. Like, where has she been? Like, where's this character been? It's such a shame that she's here right at the end. So her big thing is she's the mother of Constantine, the bastard son that's been loafing around all season, the one that you don't seem to like all that much.
No, but I did like him in this episode. I had forgotten his name, so when Francesca shows up and she's just like, Constantine messaged me and I came a running. I was just like,
who?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then
is that the Emperor? No. Must be his son. Okay, so it's the son. But I like the way that he has been sort of activated and pulled by the sisterhood, the way that they're manipulating him and the Emperor through Francesca, I found interesting. I was very dubious when they officially called it imprinting.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, but I think of Twilight, so I think it's creepy.
Well, it is creepy. No, Rachel. It is creepy. That's the whole point. It is creepy. Like, the Emperor doesn't have free will. He's like an animal that is bestowed upon how she will use him.
Yeah, I was going to say in a different way.
Yeah. Unlike Twilight, the use of the word imprinting being creepy actually matters this time. And I mentioned this in previous episodes too, that the Sisterhood uses sexuality as one of their weapons in their arsenal of control. And so we get to see it used in a very light way here. So that was awesome. I liked it as well. The characterization of Constantine I found to be really good. I think she should have shown up an episode or two earlier, so that way I could feel more for his character, because he is like many characters in which either I lack the full context to care, or the context we are given is so paper thin that I don't care.
Yeah.
And this was one where all of this is introduced, and there's all these moving pieces, and there's all of this interpersonal conflicts and massive history of these characters that is just in their faces rather than just through dialogue, that I was just yearning for this to have been more present in the show so that way I could enjoy it more. And I think it is sorely lacking. So they're maneuvering him to be, the Sisterhood want to have him to be in charge of the fleet. So then when they have the princess as the next in line, the Sisterhood can have complete control of the Imperium, because they'll have someone in charge of the military side of it, and they'll have someone in charge of the actual politics side of it, leadership side of it. Clever. Like, it's a clever little plan. And I like that Valia is like, well, our plan B is probably going to work out okay because Francesca's really awesome. I like that Valia this episode was mostly just there to be like, so, I got some really cool plans going on. What's that? You're upset? I don't care. I've got really cool plans. Do you know who I am? You just have to trust me. And people are like, I wouldn't trust her. Don't be naive. And people are like, but she's Mother Superior, so I trust her. We have all of this talk, though, Rachel, all of this praise, but there's a dumbass in the show.
I am surprised that you opened with that, because when I was just like, oh, he's being really dumb, you were like, well, to be fair, he's been dumb this whole time, and that is Kieran Atreides. He is weirdly trying to be protective of the we know to be a reverend mother. And also leaves his bullshit unlocked.
We have the fact that he is the member of the rebellion that's still active. He almost gets caught. Desmond Hart is such a little scamp in this episode. He just keeps coming into people's faces and smiling at them and saying the most cryptic and threatening stuff possible. And Travis Fimmel is chewing the scenery like no man's business. And I liked when he walked up to Kira and is like, hey, we're looking for, these insurgents. You want to come hunting with us? Oh, I didn't realize you had one of your dance lessons. Well, I better be off. Woohoo! He basically said it like that. It was awesome. I cheered. I was like, yes.
It was delightful.
And it's great because Kieran is such a blank slate character. He's just a block of wood with eyes glued on. He's such a nothing. And the Atreides are boring characters inherently, like a lot of them are, because they're just so noble and pure, and not really. But like, Kieran is just such a fucking idiot. I don't like him. He's just Jon Snow in space bullshit. He's just too stupid and noble, and I don't get his deal. And so he has to go help the lady, because if she gets found out, it could come back to him. And they want to kill Desmond Hart. But of course it won't happen because Desmond Hart can never die. But other than just recapping the plot, Rachel, what do you actually gain and get out of Kieran other than he's dumb? Because they're really trying to give him characterization. Like, we can't fault them. They have been trying to give him some nuances and things to think about. Like, even the princess comes to him at the end and is saying to the audience, well, there's something to think about with Kieran Atreides. But what do you actually get?
Not a whole lot. I feel like they are trying to do stuff with him, particularly because of the scene that he has with the Fremen sister bartender, where she's just like, you cannot fool yourself into believing that you're the man that you're pretending to be, or something.
Even if they're better than me, especially them.
And it's just like, okay, he wants to be better. He's not better, but he keeps on trying to do the right thing, but he's in conflict with himself. And it's like, well, I don't give a shit about him. He's just a tool for you to express that philosophical dilemma, and you're not even doing it well.
And I find him to also be an annoyance because he's so clever and not. And it's
whatever's convenient.
It's whatever's convenient.
It's like you assume that he left his things unlocked because he's,
No, we saw him leave them unlocked. We saw that happen in the scene because Desmond Hart came in and disrupted him. And then he was like all angry boy and left because he yelled at Constantine because Constantine was late again. And he acted like a piss baby about it. So we did see him actively fuck himself over in the end. I didn't even feel bad. When Constantine betrayed him or handed him over, and I know it's a ploy from the Sisterhood, like to get Constantine to do something or other, like the Sisterhood's winning, this was a moment where I didn't mind because I don't feel bad for Kieran Atreides because he left his shit in the open like a dumbass. He has this whole diatribe about how I need to stay in there because I've worked years and I've dedicated myself and I've had to strip so much of myself away, but I'm working towards a purpose. I have a golden path, you could say. You may as well have said that. And yet he does something like this? It doesn't line up. You're telling me one thing, showing me another, but the point of your story isn't to say that that's the flaw of his character. Like, he likes to present himself like this, but actually he's like this. That's not what Kieran Atreides is really about, but they try to angle that in there, especially with the princess visiting him at the end.
And I was just like, oh, that's right. She was getting trained. Because she needs to be able to do this. Okay.
Desmond is delightful in this episode. Every scene with him was the best scene. I particularly enjoyed when he was at the bar and he is talking about the smuggler that they just got information from. And he's like, he said a lot of things. Oh, screaming, obviously. And I had a great time. Every moment with him was what I want the show to be. And I thought he is a standout. How do you feel about Desmond overall?
I'm mixed still because it's just like, oh, you're interesting, but you're also drab, and it's a weird mix of things because it's like, oh, you have this interesting power, but you're using this in a very familiar and sort of trite way, and it's like really obvious that you're going to be evil, and he's walking around, stomping around in that fucking trench coat.
He's Space Rasputin. That's what he is. He's Rasputin, isn't he? Long hair, the beard, the implication of magical powers that he may not actually have. He's just probably using some other means to imply these things. Says he's doing this for greater good, but is in fact destroying a royal family, so on and so on and so on. He's died and come back. Like, he's Space Rasputin in a lot of ways. But when's he going to have a fabulous musical number with some dancing bugs? I can't wait. I think it's also an issue because he is so clearly the best character in the show that it makes it difficult for everyone else.
It does create a chasm.
The chasm was getting filled with one of my last points here, which is Harrow is great. That's it.
Done.
No, in all seriousness, that scene of them talking, of him and Desmond Hart talking,
and you being like, okay,
God.
so like Valia had some influence here, direct or indirect. How is this going to play out? Like, you know that she's pulling the strings, and you can see that, like, everybody's playing this for their own gain.
I like that his performance is still rooted in that he's ashamed and embarrassed and sniveling to a degree in which when he brings that to this scene, you can say what you just said, but also I took away from good portions of it of, oh, he's genuinely sniveling and spineless and weaselly enough to do this. And he's probably, he probably is doing this on an honest level. And I think this episode just allows a lot more of that. Like we were saying with Sister Francesca, and now we're saying with Harrow, the guy who's all about whale fur. And boy, does he talk about whale fur in this episode. You can still have the room for interpretation. Is he still doing this because Valia tells him to do it? Or is he playing her a little bit too? Is he good enough to do that? You may say no, but at the same time, he is stepping up and he's doing things that he wouldn't have been doing in episode 1. So I don't know. I love Harrow, and I thought it was a masterstroke to bring him and Desmond into a big scene together. I know you had pushback against this last week, but I wanted to touch base with this again because this episode had way more of it. These eccentric, hammy, over-the-top, cartoony performances. Do you feel like the show is supposed to have these here? Do you think it gets in the way?
I can't tell anymore. I really can't tell anymore because it's just like it feels deliberate here, but it doesn't feel deliberate here. And that must be that because that goes there and that way. It's mildly infuriating how inconsistently implemented it feels.
But would you want more of it? Would the series be improved if it was a more consistent trait? Not every character, but like if it was more consistently.
More consistent, probably. Like anything more consistently is good.
You say that with hesitation.
I do. I don't know. I really.
Or does it undercut this show?
I feel like if that's what the show wants, then a lot of other things need to change. I feel like it would be easier to take that away than add it and make it make sense.
Because I think it needs it. I've said this from the beginning, and I think it's
a nice type of like levity.
But it's not just about levity, it's about energy. Because
dynamic.
This episode is a lot more smooth and dynamic and fluid and just enjoyable. I wasn't bored during this episode.
It flows so much better.
And I think because we have a lot of characters like this now in the show with these performances and these moves that they make, that it is better. And we don't need everyone to be giving a Travis Fimmel performance. I'm not saying that.
No.
But it's not even about Dune. Like, look at its contemporaries that it's going off against. Like a Game of Thrones, for instance. That show was very grim and very self-serious, and you had Ned Stark, but also Tyrion was a delightful wonder. He's a fan favorite because he was fun.
Yeah.
Same goes with so many other characters in that show, and yet, you know, early on, it was a very serious, grounded series. You could have room for Podrick, and you can have room for Harrow in this show. I think that if this does continue on, they need to embrace this more. And that's something I want to ask you. We've got one episode left. I don't know if this is like a one and done.
I don't know if they plan it to be one and done, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be.
Yeah,
like,
it's so up in the air.
We haven't, like, the production stuff alone makes me go, nobody wants this.
It's gone through a few different showrunners, but the iron is hot. People are enjoying this show, and Dune, the movies are doing well. So it would be foolish not to try more. I would hope that they try to do more story here, but what, next week, are they going to defeat Desmond Hart and get to the reveal, and what do you do from there? Or is it going to keep going? I don't know. I actually don't know how this season is going to wrap up because I can't tell if they're going to quickly tighten all of the strings that they've been pulling at or if they're going to keep them loose for the possibility for more.
I feel like we're going to get a mix. But Ryan, we need to rate it. We've been talking about predictions through the whole fucking thing, so I don't know if we have any of those. But ratings, we have to do. And you decided Yum was bad and Yum Yum was good. Is this going to be your second Yum Yum of the season?
Will it be your first?
It is my first.
Yum yum.
It is my second.
Yum yum.
I liked it. And I am glad that I liked it. My first note that I wrote when we started watching this episode, when the credits were rolling, because we go straight into the opening credits, I just wrote, I wish I cared. And then by the end of the episode, I did care a little bit.
That's all we ask, Dune Prophecy. That's all we want is for Rachel to care slightly. The next episode, we don't know the name of.
Nope.
We don't know anything about. It will be the last of Dune Prophecy for now. Whether things come back or there's more to do, we'll have to wait and see. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. If you support our podcast on Patreon, you get these episodes early, as well as a massive back catalogue of bonus material. Our episodes on The Expanse. We have discussions on the best and worst episodes of Star Trek. We're talking about the Dune movies over on our Patreon, so make sure to head on over there and support us, and you get access to all of those, as well as be a part of our community Discord, in which we talk with our fellow Yumlings about Dune Prophecy, as well as other things. Rachel, where else can people find the podcast?
They can find us under yumyumpod or yumyumpodcast. Email us at yumyumpod@gmail.com.
Rate, review, and share the podcast. It helps us greatly. But we have to go now because we're running out of whale fur. Pirates keep stealing it, and I hate that. Also, no worm. Rachel, by the end of this show, do you think we'll have half worm episodes, half not, or do you think we'll be a bit short? Because we've had two major worm episodes. The first and the last one.
You know what? I'm going to say no worm, because then I get to be extra excited if there is.
And have we discussed the untapped value of whale seed? Seed.